So let's go on to the second one, the second step formula that if I were to use, of course, after questions, I connect with the audience laugh, their guard are off, and then I sneak in right into my stories. But how do you connect? How do you use stories to connect with your audience? And there are a whole series that I have talked about on how to create and craft stories like a director or a producer in Hollywood, because I've actually attended a $97 course that I have attended for like I think about one whole day to learn about productions and also storyboarding your ideas and how Hollywood crafted their stories. So I will share that with you in my next video, but today I just want to give you a brief overview what stories. In stories, you must use in a presentation format. Stories, you must use stories with dialogue. Many people would go out there and they would report stories. They will go and say, oh, I talked to ABC, and ABC responded and say he's not interested in me, and then I was really sad. That is good, but wouldn't it be better if you use dialogue in your speech? Because you do not want to report your speech or presentation. You want to relive it on stage, and then the audience will feel that they are in the picture. But one of the best way to start a story is to use this phrase I call I will never forget the moment when I meet Mary. I will never forget my first time when I meet Olga. You know, audience connect right away with this particular sentence because I will never forget. I will never forgive my aunt for doing that to me. You know, I will never do this. I will never do that. That particular sentence have power when you start with your presentation with that particular two sentence. I would never do this. If you say, I would never forget this thing, audience scream, oh, you will never forget? Audience wants to know more. So you need to start with this. I would never forget. I would never forget my first experience. If you tell them your first experience in doing something, everyone is going to be interested because this is the first time they're going to experience you. So you want to use that in your stories by beginning by this. The second thing you want to do right away in your stories is introduce the character. Introduce the character. Later on, I'm going to show you the video that I presented this using the 7-step formula, where I'm going to show you, I will give you something, introduce a character. So in that particular presentation of about 5 to 7 minutes, I actually introduced my character right up front. I say, I will never forget the first time I met Mary. I look right into the audience, one of the audience who is a girl. I met Mary, who looks a little bit like the Chinese version of Natalie Portman. Use simile. Once you introduce your character, you need to use simile to describe the character. Of course, there are a whole bunch of topics that you can use. I have created a bunch of videos that you can use. Description, how you're going to describe someone in a vivid way that actually connect with the audience. But just a quick overview that you're just going to use simile to describe. Why use simile? Why simile is so powerful? Because simile can only mention, you only need to say one word, and the audience get the whole picture of who this person looks like or behaved. So if I tell you, when Bo come up and present his speech, Bo looks a little bit like Ronald Reagan. So I don't need to describe Bo and say Bo is charismatic, stage presence, authoritative on stage. I don't need to say that, because when I say Ronald Reagan, everyone get the pictures of Ronald Reagan. You need to use simile, and it is extremely powerful. And I added this thing called, if I say Natalie Portman, everyone knows Natalie Portman, but Mary is a Chinese girl. So I said, who looks a little bit like the Chinese version of Natalie Portman. When I said that, everyone laughs, because no one's going to imagine Chinese version of Natalie Portman. But really, Mary is thin, sharp-faced, a little petite, who looks really like Natalie Portman, but it's a Chinese. I want to tell the audience that it is a Chinese and it is not a white girl. I met an Asian girl. So that's how I use simile to describe my character right up front in the stories. The second thing is movement and positioning. When you say dialogue, you need to use movement. Dialogue, movement. So when you want to talk about, I meet the Chinese version of Natalie Portman, and then everything changed when she called me. I moved to the left-hand side as being myself, and I hold up my arm and I say, "Hey Mary, what happened?" I move to the right-hand side and I lift my left hand out and say, "Ken, I don't want you to come over." You see, I use space to differentiate the character, but I could also use voice to differentiate the character. And when you stand in front and you want to mimic someone else on stage, make sure you don't stand 45 degrees. 90 degrees. Don't stand 90 degrees. Stand at 45 degrees, because you want to talk as if you want to have a facial connection with your audience as well. You can't stand like this because this is an acting, but you want to do this 45 degrees. And when you go up, you do this. And using dialogue is the best way for you to practice your vocal variety. "Hey, Mary, how are you doing?" "Ken, I don't want you to come over." So you can practice your dialogue by raising your volume on pitch, which we will talk about later. But what I want to tell you is the body movement to differentiate the character. Actually, there's one more, which I'm going to share with you here. It's when you use stories and when you use dialogue, make sure you use the name. This is essential. You need to use the name. The name is very personal and everyone wants to listen to the name. So although I might have acknowledged Mary, and everyone knows that Mary is the person that I like, I want to have a relationship with Mary, but in the dialogue itself, you want to rename you want to relive. So you say, "Hey Mary, how are you?" And then Mary says, "Ken, I don't want you to come." Most people will say, "I don't want you to come," but they never mention Ken, which is me. And you need to mention names, because name relates to the audience. When you say name, people know that I'm Ken, so they want to know more. And when you put the name in front of that dialogue, it changes the connection with the audience. It just works. So trust me, use it next time and see whether it works. Name, use the name. May mention Ken or Robert or Bo or Christians. Would you like to have this? Actually, this is also very much used in the sales psychology. A lot of times you don't ask if you are in the sales situation, if you're in WhatsApp sales, you will notice that always use the name, because name just somehow connect with the audience. You just say, "Christians, do you think this is right?" Instead of asking, "Do you think this is right?" "Christian, do you think this is right?" It's better. It's better. And that is the subtlety that you want to learn here. Anyway, move on to the third one.